Hello and welcome to today's class. We'll be looking at how to install Python to your local PCs. Now, this class's learning objective will include the following. We'll basically look at how to install a Python interpreter. And of course, you have to know what that is. Then we'll look at finally how to integrate the interpreter that we'll have installed with a suitable code editor. Now, I'm assuming that in this class, I'm teaching total beginners, newbies to the world of programming. So I'll basically start by mentioning what Python interpreter means. All right. So a Python, a Python interpreter is basically a program that reads and executes Python code. Okay. It is a program that reads and executes Python code. You cannot program or write Python code without a Python interpreter, to help you read and execute the code. So basically, what it does is that it translates the Python code that you've written into machine readable instruction that your computer hardware can understand and execute. We will demonstrate that in this lesson how that happens. So how is it basically used? So we have several ways that you can use a Python interpreter. Once you have it installed into your computer, basically how do you use it? So the first way that and the easiest way that you can always use it is always through the interactive mode. Now, within the interactive mode, you can't do much. Interactive mode is basically used to test, first of all, if the interpreter is working correctly and if the commands are working as they should. So it is usually used from the command prompt, all right, where you can direct Python commands and get immediate results of them. We shall demonstrate that in this lesson. We also have what we call script mode. So in script mode, basically you write Python code in executable Python files, all right? Then you are able to run them in the command prompt as scripts. We shall also demonstrate that with as the classes progress. We have the integrated development environment IDEs, and this is what we look at. We'll be focusing mostly in this particular class how to use Python with IDEs. So basically, IDEs are code editors that have Python pre-installed in them as you download them. So we have such code editors that have Python already pre-installed in them. And so when you download them, it's easy to use Python from there in, as Python is already installed in them. All right, so command line. So this is another way that you can use Python interpreter. So you use it by basically running Python command with the Python file that you have containing your code. So all these, we won't discuss how all these are actually done except for IDEs and interactive mode, maybe. Now, I've mentioned code editors, all right? And that is another thing that we want to install in this particular lesson. So what is a code editor, all right? What is a code editor? Because as you've seen, one of the ways through which you use Python interpreters is through IDEs, that is integrated development environments, and that is that for that to be done, it comes with the use of code editors. So a code editor basically is a software tool that is used to write, edit, and manage code. Okay, so for you to write, edit, and manage, especially large amounts of code, production, let's say when you're trying to work on an app, you'll always need the use of a code editor. It helps you to write, edit, and manage code. All right. So the reason why code editors are very important, especially in productivity, are the following. First of all, code editors helps highlight syntax of Python. All right. So it will always give different colors let's say, to functions, and different colors to variables that you have written, and all that. So it will basically highlight syntax and help and make it easy for you to, write, edit, and manage your code. Another thing that it does is that it does auto indentation. Indentation basically means how code is arranged in lines. Okay, is, let's say you're writing a function. How much space should you skip after writing the function head? So that is what we call indentation, and we shall learn all those. When you're writing, let's say, a loop, a for loop statement, how are you supposed to write it? How are you supposed to arrange your next line after you've written the loop statement, or the for loop, or the for loop statement? So that is what we call indentation. Then we have what we call code completion. So once you've started writing a piece of code, let's say a function, you can always see how it's all going to end. So you can always just basically autocomplete it, all right, from the code editors. It completes codes for you. It's there to make your work easy. And we have debugging of code basically. When you write wrong code, these editors are able to highlight them, the areas of mistakes. Then you're able to to correct the mistakes and have your code running within no time. So that's it with code editors. Some examples of code editors, and the one that we particularly use in this lesson include VS Code, or Visual Studio Code. This is the one that we're going to focus on how to use in this particular class. We have Sublime Text, we have Atom, we have Vim, we have Emacs, and Notepad plus plus. We have many other examples of code editors, and it depends on what suits you. Most beginners are always advised to use Vim or Emacs, for their code editing, as it teaches you the fundamentals of programming as you do that. But in this particular class, because we want to make the work much more easier, we'll be looking at how to edit code from the VS Studio. All right. So basically, that's it with the theory to this class. So we'll start by installing Python. So for you to install Python, visit their site, that is python.org. All right. Once you're in their site, you can see these links up here. Go to downloads. All right. And depending on the operating system you have in your computer, you can choose whether you can choose what version of Python you want. That is, if you're using Linux, by coming to this link here, or Mac OS or others. But in this particular case, because I'm using Windows, just go to download the download button directly and choose from where you want to, download choose from where you want to download your Python interpreter. All right. So I'm going to come here, and in this folder, I'm going to save my Python interpreter. Okay, I'm going to save my Python interpreter there. So we'll give it a moment to download, then we'll come back. Okay, now we're going to check if it has been downloaded. Basically, it has been downloaded from our local computer. So to install it, we are going to double click on the icon, the Python icon that we have there. So when you double click on it, it gives you options of installation. All right. So we're going to do a customized installation of, okay, and we're also going to add the Python interpreter to our path, the computer path, so that when we want to use it using our editor, it will be easy. Then we'll do that. We basically let everything pass here and go to next. Uh, yep, we have everything as we want. And so this is our path here, which is good. So basically, if you install your if you install your code editor, it will pick the path automatically, and we'll be able to use your code, your Python interpreter as it should. All right, so let's install. Give it a moment to install, and then let's see what happens. So it's loading, and in a moment we'll be able to tell, you know, that. So the setup was successful, as you can see from here. So we can close that. And that's it for our Python interpreter. We have it installed. Now, if you want to use it, we said that you could use Python using the what? The interpreter, the interactive mode. So if you want to use the Python interpreter that you just installed into your computer, you can come to your command prompt. In this particular case, particular situation, I'm using Windows, so I'm gonna go to Windows PowerShell. All right, and in Windows PowerShell, all right, let me just maximize my windows so that you can see what's going on. So in Windows PowerShell, let me make sure as well that you are able to see uh, everything as, sorry. So in Windows PowerShell, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to basically type Python. All right, I'm going to type what? Python. And so when I type Python, it lets me access the Python interpreter in what? In the interactive mode. So while I'm here, I'm just going to give it an instruction, and I'm going to tell it to print. I'm going to tell the interpreter to print hello world, hello world, hello world. So we expect to see this code work immediately. It's direct result in the next line. So when I press enter, you see hello world has been printed out to me down here. Hello world. So that is how you can use Python within the interactive mode. You cannot do any production with Python at this mode. Basically this is to test and maybe debug your code, and do code test whenever you need to do so. Right, so we're going to exit this mode by typing exit with two parentheses. And that's it. So we can clear our command prompt and close it to continue with the rest of our class. So that is one way that you can use that is one way that you can use to what? To use your Python interpreter. So the next thing we're going to do in this particular class is we're going to install Visual Studio Code. This is a code editor that is going to also help us see how we can use the Python interpreter. Let's say if you're dealing with a large production, if you're, let's say, working on an app or you're working on a website, how do you approach that? Because you cannot do that using the interactive mode. So we can do that using the other ways. And in this particular case, you want to use the what? The integrated development environment, with Python, because that allows us to do large production of codes and even, work on applications and sites. So come here for you to download VS Code. So visit code.visualstudios.com. We'll also have the links of these sites uh, linked in our in our description, video description here in YouTube. And so once you're here, um, you can download for Windows directly if you're using Windows, all right? But if you're using Mac or you're using Linux, just hit on this uh, drop icon, and you can see the other the other the other versions of VS Code that are available to you if you're using different operating system. I'm using Windows, so I'm just going to click on download there. And it's very fast. You see, it lets me download very fast. And so we're going to give it a moment to download. As you can already see here, it's loading. Once it's done, we'll open and continue with the rest of it together. Okay, so our download is complete. Now we can come for us to install the VS Code in our computer. We basically come and double click on this VS Studio icon, which will let us, read through the terms and conditions required for the setup. And so we're just going to accept all that. If you want to use it, you'll have to. Right. So we just let the path stay as it is. All right. Um, and we're using Visual Studios there. And so we're just going to create, we're going to click on this icon to create a desktop icon for VS Studio for quick access. And with that, you can install the rest of the code uh, by hitting the install icon. So it's loading up, and once it's done, we'll be able to access it. So it's finished. All right, so here it is. The Visual Studio Code has been automatically opened for use. For use within our computer. Okay, so one thing that I'm going to emphasize on is that once you have VS installed in your computer, all right, once you have VS installed in your computer, you're supposed to do a Python extension installation, all right, for VS Code, so that your VS Code and Python are able to work together, all right. So for you to do that, basically, you're supposed to go to um, uh, the extensions that are available to VS Code and search out Python interpreter. You'll see it down there, and basically click for it for installation. Then you can create a Python project and basically start coding. So let me just demonstrate how all that is done. I'm very sorry. Let me just demonstrate how all that is done. So we're going to come here, and you can see some icons on the left hand side of your VS Code. You can see Python is already installed with the VS Code, and I told you that that is how IDEs are. They can pre-installed with Python. Not only Python, but numerous other numerous languages. All right. So coming here, we are going to look for where we have extensions. All right. Remote Explorer. Then we have extensions right here. Okay, so while we're here, we can search for Python interpreter. Python interpreter. Okay, so you see we have several results there. We have Python interpreter made by, just a minute. Let me take this back to, yeah, we have Python interpreter made by Microsoft right down there. All right, and debug and all that. So we can just basically come here and install. Mine has already been installed, so if yours isn't installed, just hit on it and install it right there. If you want, you also needed debugging, your code, you should have it installed right there. And so basically a Python extension, that allows you to do all that. Use Python, Jinja, Django, and VS and all that. So this is, yeah, Python environment manager. You see, you can have it installed there by Don, uh, whoever. I can't read that name. Yeah. So all that is installed in my particular case. All right. If you also need a Python path and all that. So all these things are here. All right. All these extensions that you may need are all here. So you just search out for the Python extension, and then you're able to install Python uh, right from your computer right there. Now, to create your first project, all right, let me just do away with this window. To create your first project, just come to this icon here, this one here, Explorer, all right, then open folder. Okay, so with open folder, it allows you to, choose the path that you want to store your project. So I'm going to store it in this file called YouTube, and I'm going to maybe create a new folder. All right, I'm going to call this uh, new project, a new project. All right, so this way I'm going to have my first project stored. So I'm going to select that folder right there. All right. So I have it stored in a new project. So that's the directory that I'll be using to store all of my projects, all right, within the Windows, within my Windows computer, all right. And for me to create a file within this directory, I'll have to hit this icon, new file. If I want to create another folder within it, I'll hit this icon that allows me to create what? A new folder and all that. This allows me to collapse folders that are within that project and all that, and refresh the directory in case maybe I'm not seeing a file that I just created recently. I can always hit refresh. So in this particular case, I want to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this folder hello world, hello.py. Now this being a Python file, all Python files end with the extension .py. Okay, .py. So that's why you can see this file here. I have it ending with .py. Whenever you're creating a Python file, always make sure that it ends with the extension .py. So we're going to key in the same command that we keyed earlier on. All right, that is, we want to print out hello world in the console. All right, so I'm going to use the print function, which you can already see has been highlighted. We say that code editors help with highlighting our syntax. All right, now I'm going to press on the parentheses, and you see it auto completes it. Just pressing on the first on the parentheses, it auto completes the all parentheses for me. Then I'm able to write the rest of the code that I want within the parentheses. All right, so I'm going to write hello world right there. Now, to run this code for a newbie, we've already done whatever, we've written the first code that we wanted. This is the simplest code that anyone can ever write when you're using um, Python language or any other language. It's easy to use. It's easy to write this particular kind of code. So for us to run this code and see the results of it in the console, all right, we're going to hit this icon here, run Python file. You can see it's been written there, run Python file. So when you hit on that, you see hello world has been written down here, right? Hello world has been written right down there. Good. So maybe we can clear our console, all right? All right, now we can come here again. We can come here again and write more code, right? More code. Or maybe we create another, let me just create another file for you so that you see how we can create another file within the same directory and how it's all going to be used, all right? So we can close this file right here, all right? Now that we've closed that, I can come back here and create another file, all right? Just below the file that we have, that we had created earlier on. So I'm going to call this sum.py. Remember, all Python for files should end with the .py extension. Press enter, so it automatically comes below hello.py file. So in here, I'm going to create what we call a variable. Earlier on, when we were introducing programming, I told you that variables are supposed to store data that are used and can be, manipulated within the program itself. So this variable a, I shall call it a. I want it to store the data two. All right. Okay, good. Then I want to create another variable. I'm going to call it b. All right. And I want this variable b to store, let's say, 4. Okay. Number 4. So I want to print the results. I want to print the results of um, a plus b. That is 2 plus 4, and that should be 6. But of course, I want to do it using a chord structure. So a plus b. You can see everything is right there. Okay. Now, for me to run the result of this code, for me to run this a plus b, I'll come here and hit our icon again. And so you see that a plus b basically gives me what? Gives me 6. And so that's it for today's class. I'll let you do the rest of the practice on your own. Uh, so what we've basically done is we've created a Python project and we've done some coding. And so I'll ask you to also go ahead and do some coding. Just a slight review of this class. We've installed our Python code, we've installed our code editor, and we've demonstrated the use of it from the VS Code. Thank you and see you in the next one.